Hey, it's Sam, and I'm making this video talking about this new moon in Cancer. This is the second new moon that we've had in Cancer in 2023. It's called Adhika Masa, which is the extra month, because the first new moon in Cancer happened barely at 1 degree of Cancer in Punarvasu Nakshatra. That was literally like 30 days ago. And now we're having the next new moon in Aslesha Nakshatra at the very edge of Cancer at about 29 degrees. You could see here, this is on August 15th. So this is Pacific time. Early in the morning, August 16th, we'll have the exact sun and moon come together, and the sun will be the sun and moon will be about 29 degrees of Aslesha, or of Cancer in Aslesha Nakshatra. So we're going to talk about Aslesha Nakshatra. This is from my website, VedicAstrologyCenter.net. And so we're going to talk about that and this new moon and what you can expect.
Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jeppy, Vedic Astrology Teacher. On there since 2007, thousands of hours of classes. Also on Facebook at Astrology Teacher, tons of articles updated regularly, and I'm on Instagram at Vedic Astrology 108, ongoing updates and interaction.
So as you see here, we have this sun and moon coming together at Aslesha in Cancer, Aslesha Nakshatra. So Aslesha is the part of Cancer that is related to this serpent energy. It literally the word means to entangle or entwine or to wrap up. Also to embrace, as you see here in this video from my website, Aslesha entwiner, embracer, intimate connection. And this is a video that I made years ago talking about it. And again, it's this idea of entangling, embracing. I was having a good hair day, wasn't I? And this shows the nature of Cancer, the sign, to embrace, to hug tight, to hold tight. Think of a mother's embrace. When a mother is embracing a child, for example, then that getting wrapped up or getting tangled up in the life of the child is very appropriate, because there's devotion, there's selfless love there. And when we get tangled up and wrapped up in devotion to like a child or to our pets or animals, I use that as an example, ultimately to our guru and to the truth and to the devotion that we have toward the truth and toward the guru, that's the highest teaching. And it's like the culmination of the sign of Cancer. Because again, it's where we get tangled up and again, even hearing the term tangled up doesn't sound very pleasant or very devotional or anything. It sounds like we're stuck and tangled up because you're so used to your desires, you're so used to your mind, you hardly ever see beyond it, if you ever see beyond it. To you, tangled up in something means tangled up in some desire, something you want, and you're just kind of stuck in it, and you can't get out of it. And your entire mind and heart and identity is wrapped up in it, is wrapped around it like a serpent. This is why the symbol of Aslesha is a coiled serpent, which, by the way, is also a symbol of the Kundalini and that deeper hidden energy that is at the foundation of your consciousness, right? So when you're wrapped up in devotion, and again, I'm sure you're thinking of something external, like, yes, like I'm so devoted to my animals, or so devoted to my, children, or let's say again to like a guru or a teaching. Then getting wrapped up in it doesn't feel pathological or psychotic. It only feels pathological or psychotic when we're wrapped up and tangled up in our desires, the things that we want from another person. Then we're like wrapped around them as an extension of our desire. And then the nature of Aslesha is very difficult. This is why Aslesha is said to be one of the more difficult nakshatras, because it's literally where all that emotion and passion of Cancer which again is so strong because it's literally like the mother who will give her life for the child. The devotion that is unshakable, faith, higher devotion, and the wisdom that comes from authentic and pure devotion. Think of how much you learn about yourself and your capacities and capabilities based on pure love, true love. Again, and then compare that to what you bring into your relationship partners and your other associations. So again, we're always so quick to blame our relationship partners and all they've done to us. We remember that, and we remember all the pain that it caused us. We usually have blinders on when it comes to the pain we've caused them. From their point of view, we're doing that as well. And it's two egos. When two egos are wrapped around each other, then this is what you can experience as far as the pain is concerned, because two individuals who are trying to get that lifeblood of emotional validation from another separate person, another egoistic person, which we all are, then we're wrapped up in something that we can't control. We've already lost ourself, and we're so dependent upon their approval and reflection and all that stuff. And then we get tangled up, and it's that difficult kind of psychotic quality of Aslesha. And I explain that here in this link at my website. And so, again, it's analogous to our emotions getting tangled up in personal desires rather than a higher, more Sattvic principle. Sattvic is selflessness. And again, there's nothing wrong or better about the different gunas. Selflessness just means that we're driven by that type of love in this sign. But if we don't get it, or if we can't give it, we can feel less than. But then we get all emotional and we get all weirded out too, and we act just as, again, pathological and whatnot. So if you have planets in Aslesha or in Cancer, it doesn't mean, oh, Sattvic, the good one, yes, I'm so devoted and so loving. And well, that's a motivation. But when you don't get that back from another person, which it's not gonna feel that way in your romantic relationships, because you do have desires in those romantic relationships because they're ruled by Venus. Again, this is why we have to understand what the nature is of each one of these signs, and it's just a motivation. So the motivation of Cancer, including Aslesha Nakshatra, of course, is to find those things where we're devoted, authentically devoted. Because the other thing is, when you're authentically devotional and devoted to something, when you don't get back the same thing you're giving, when there's no equality, you don't get angry, you don't get upset, you don't feel mistreated, you don't feel disrespected. It doesn't matter if the cat or the dog loves you back. I mean, you can feel that it does, but what if it doesn't? What if you give all this love to the cat and the cat wants to get away and go hide under the bed? You don't suddenly feel abandoned and all your inner child wounds come up. No. You just try to get the cat back out because you want to keep loving it, right? Not the same with your partners or your friends, where you're constantly aware of, well, I gave this, did you give it back? How come I get to do this? You did that. Well, you said this, now you said that. And we're constantly on that scale, which, by the way, that's fine. That's a different life lesson. That's a life lesson related to Venus. Because if we selflessly love our partner like we love our child or our animal, it's not going to work. Because first of all, we don't have that kind of selfless love for them. That's not what drives it. It's driven by desire. It's driven by an agreement, a compromise. Very much like a business agreement. You go to a job, they pay you a certain amount of money. You calibrate whether it's fair or not. It's a negotiation. That's what relationships are. All relationships. You don't feel cheated, or you're not calibrating the relationship with your baby, right? And so as a child grows up, though, we have to adjust. So that nature of the moon as being the ruler of Cancer, as a child is a baby and they're totally dependent on us, the child throws up, spits up in our face, we don't get mad. But if the child is 8 years old and they know what it is to spit up in our face and they spit in our face, then we're going to get mad at the child because the child's values have changed now, and we're going to teach that child that that was not respectful, which is Venus. So the moon and Venus are always calibrating. Is this a place of devotion, or is this a place of accountability and an agreement? So I'm talking about this also very important now because we have Venus and moon very close to each other. So these are things that are very hot and dynamic right now. And learning to tease out whether there's authentic devotion. And again, the biggest place we get confused is in our romantic relationships. We act like a martyr. Oh, I'm so devotional. I'm so loving. All I do for them. Yeah, and as soon as they don't do it, even if they don't do it this much, you're feeling unappreciated, angry, ready to call them out on it, playing little games. Then your ego comes up, even if it's not anger. Again, you have a way of showing your anger. Passive aggressive is just as aggressive as aggressive. Playing little games and little guilt trips and little things is just as aggressive. Maybe it's passive aggressive, but it's the same thing. And again, this getting these things blurry is what can happen with Moon Venus in general. So both of them in Aslesha, where we're dealing with this entwining and this entangling, is really ripe now. And again, so this is a very sort of precise astrological analysis. And one of the things that is really powerful on new moons when new cycles start is it's a new beginning. And right now, I'm offering new beginnings in my certification course. Go to yourtruenaturevideos.com to get the Live Your True Nature 4-part video series. The first is called Your True Self, Your Cosmic Self, where we talk about the Atman, the Jiva Atman that comes down into the 9 planets of Lord Vishnu, how we incarnate. Then we look at our egoistic struggles in video 3, where we try to return back to the path home, the joyful and wise path home, in video 4. So again, yourtruenaturevideos.com. It's time to know yourself, not just believe in yourself. So yeah, as you can see, this Live Your True Nature Vedic Astrology course is really about teaching how to do astrology at this high level. And again, you have to understand this difference first between the moon and Venus. How one is that selfless devotional love, like I just explained. The other is the transactional romantic love, like the scales. Again, this is understanding just these principles and how they're different is a huge shift. Looking at the fact that it's happening on a new moon and in this nakshatra. Again, all of these details are there, and it seems complicated, and it's definitely a lot, but it's definitely not beyond your grasp. This is why I've been training Vedic astrologers for more than 10 years, 10 to 15 years. And on August 19th and 20th of 2023, I'm teaching the first module over again, Vedic Principles in Astrology. Putting that together now as I'm recording this August 13th, August 14th. And again, that's going to be great for all the people who register for the course. The official kickoff is August 22nd, which is also a little known and celebrated holiday called Kalki Jayanti, which is celebrating the new world, the next world that comes in. It's a very life-affirming, future-affirming celebration. It's not celebrated that much because Kalki, the next avatar of Lord Vishnu, hasn't really come yet. At least that's what general wisdom indicates, but I'm going to talk quite a bit about that. But it also comes after an important celebration called Nag Panchami, which is on August 21st. So there's a lot to be excited about. And when you learn astrology properly, again, you can have this type of precise, focused knowledge, even if, like most of you do, rather than watching a lot of different videos and going very shallow in all of your thinking, you just concentrate all of that same energy on one path, one goal, like one teaching. Then you actually really learn how it works and you go deeply into it, just like anything else you've ever learned correctly. When you went to college to study whatever it is you studied, you didn't study 15,000 different ways of doing it, perhaps. You learned a system it's a curriculum that's been repeated and improved for a long time. That's what this course is. So I'm really excited to get started here, and I know a lot of people are as well. So this time that we're in, these new moons, when sun and moon come together, are literally like the sperm meeting the egg. It's an initiation time. It's a time of initiation. And again, the other thing about Aslesha Nakshatra, it's related to this, this symbol is the serpent. You can just imagine, like I already said, the serpent is something that, that entwines us, that tangles up around something and wraps around it like a constrictor. But serpents also have, poison in their, some obviously poisonous things have that poison that the serpent can bite you. We already talked about the poisonous quality of the serpent biting you. The serpent bites you when you're too driven by desire, not by devotion. In that case, that intensity and that embrace and like getting bitten, we even use the analogy, bitten by love, I was bitten. When we're bitten by the love of devotion to our new cat or dog, or we meet this guru that has now changed my life and we're utterly devoted to it, we're bitten by that too. By the way, I've been known to really get people bitten by the astrology bug. And it's the same kind of thing. This is why I'm talking about it now. Because you get bitten by that astrology bug and it's going to change your life because you're going to connect to that cosmic truth of the entire existence. And as you saw, that live your true nature astrology course, those free videos you'll get bitten by the astrology bug because you'll actually realize what it is. That astrology isn't just fortune telling and things like that. So this is the way that we transform the potential poison in our mind. Because you have to understand the nature of the mind and ego itself is not inimical. It's not our enemy, but it's a naturally lower vibration because it's not our ultimate reality. We're not ultimately this creature of form. We're a creature of spirit, of essence. And that essence and spirit comes down from a place and it's known. This isn't, oh, well, you believe that. I believe this. Who cares? It's not a belief system. I don't believe this stuff. It's a practice. When you practice it, you see it work. And again, I'm not even talking about astrology. I'm talking about spiritual practice, where these structures that you see here, like this Shiva, Paramatman, Jiva Atman, then the forces of consciousness come down, and then they break off into the three gunas, which form the three gunas and five elements form the basis of the ego. And then through that whole limited matrix, if you were to look at this diagram or this diagram here, because when you join, you wind up getting a high resonant picture of this diagram. You look at this diagram, this is your ultimate reality, and it filters down into here. In this whole thing, you're here. You're down here in karma. This is where you are. You're all the way down here. So you're down here in your karma, just attached to all the stuff you feel, all your triggers, all your buttons, all your limitations. You don't even realize that your karma is all of your spiritual nature filtered through your ego. You hardly even recognize or understand that you're just operating through an ego. You're just so tied up in the karma of it all. You're so wrapped up in the karma of the, well, I got to this, I got to that, got to this, had this. You don't even realize that this I, who you keep identifying as, is not even your real nature. It's this ego. So you're not even in the ego, let alone up here in all of this. You're down here in karma. Vedic astrology, with its multitude of techniques and principles, allows you to know this, right? So you're down here in karma, getting lost, not even understanding that it's just your limited identity filtered through your ego. So first you have to also just understand the nature of your ego, which are the things that I just explained here quickly with Venus and the moon. You just have to understand that the nature of Venus and the moon filtered through your ego feels like the way it feels to you. Then I would look at your chart to see exactly how your ego filters it. That's what the chart is. And then I have to explain to you, I have to reacquaint you with the fact that that's not you. That's your ego. It's your illusion of separateness based on karmic patterns which create emotion and attachment. So the first part of where most people are is not even really getting this. So again, one of the things people hear me talking about, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. And really just hearing me say the words isn't the point. It's understanding that in order to shift this, you have to do something different. You have to take different actions, different karma, right? Because the karma you have now that you've taken in the past has led you to be down here. And understanding that pretty much everything that goes through your mind, through this illusion of whoever you are, is all ego, disconnected from the pure nature of the planets. Again, the pure nature is above the ego. It's where it's that purity of the heart, not the emotions, which is the heart filtered through the ego. It's the purity of Venus, which is pure beauty. Not that beauty and joy filtered through our desires. The pure Mars, pure courage. Not the, I'm going to fight with you and tell you what you did wrong and I'm going to fight to change you. No, it's the pure courage to change ourselves. Again, we're so far away from that pure level of the planets even, which is what this is. This is the pure nature of the planets. And the reason we're so far away is because we don't even realize that we're operating through an ego. We still think that this ego is this. We're disconnected. So again, that's what the course does. What this certification course does is it actually drills down deep into all of that stuff first. And that's what that first module is I'm going to be reteaching on August 19th and 20th. But that's what you need to understand about this time right now. And this Aslesha and the entwining quality and how this poison can also become the great elixir once you get bitten by the bug or bitten by the serpent or bitten by whatever you want to look at. You can get bit, and by the way, the things that often transform our consciousness is first we do get bitten by the serpent, and that poison goes in, and instead of it destroying our mind, it actually forces us to look to a higher solution. So that's really a great opportunity right now. Is you're being gifted by this confusing situation, particularly around other people, how to manage your emotions, your devotion, your typical emotional habits, your little games that you play. And yes, this is what the ego does. That's why I said aggressive, passive aggressive, whatever it is, the ego is doing its thing. You might be under the illusion, I'm so loving and so kind. Yeah, as soon as something scares you or you don't like something or whatever, then all the little games come. Your ego, not you, but your ego is great at cycling through your habits and your karma based on your karma. Karma is really just like a bunch of habits that we have. We're so used to doing it and we think it's us. but it's not. It's just our ego cycling through its habits. But you can take different habits. The same energy is there. As you know, you've changed in your life. There's been times in your life where rather than just doing the same old habitual unconscious thing, after a while you get tired of the pain and the ignorance and the realization that you're stuck, and you wake up, and that poison becomes an elixir. Amrita is what it's called. It's called Amrita. Where instead of it being the same poisonous, toxic thing, it still has the same potency, but now it's the potency to awaken that hidden power. This is what serpents are. Serpents represent the hidden power in the mind, like the Kundalini wrapped up, like the hidden power of the venom they have. They can bite you, but that venom is also a great antidote. You know, all kinds of naturally occurring venoms and stuff like that are great, have great healing properties. That includes like when, you know, stuff from like bee stings and other kinds of big, you know, because there's a lot of power in them, even on the nervous system, right? So this capacity of the serpent to not just bite you and hurt you again, but to bite you and shock you into the awareness that you don't have forever. You're not going to live forever. You're not the perfect angel who is always just so loving and kind and devotional. No, you play just as many games. You're just as lost in your own way as the ones who you think are lost. You're stuck in your own thing. And it's a new course. Sun and moon coming together. The new course and the new cycle in Aslesha Nakshatra is a new opportunity for that same kind of, you know, painful desires getting triggered and getting stuck in these desires to actually elevate you to something devotional and be devoted to something. To be devoted, like, let's say, to learning astrology, right? Which is a great thing to be devoted to. And like I say, there's a lot of students who have been devoted to this over the years. And again, you can even think of that nature of the serpent biting you. It's kind of like even biting, like the thing going in and going deep into you. So again, instead of all these little surface holes, and again, this analogy of the well is a very good one, because this is typically what happens now, particularly in this day and age, as our attention span is so fragmented, and getting more and more so with Instagram shorts and TikTok shorts and whatnot. It used to be that it was pretty easy for people to watch even a 10 or 15 minute video of me, you know, talking about my certification course and other things like that, like I have on this page, you know. But now people, you know, literally our attention span is less than a goldfish. A goldfish has a 9-second attention span. You might have seen this. It's pretty well publicized that human beings now have about 8 seconds. And that's based on web browsing. That's not even based on a phone. So our attention span is so dwindled now that we wind up digging all these little holes and thinking we're actually making progress when we're not. We're not making progress. We're, in many ways, not just drawing a lot of wrong conclusions, like how hard people think it is to learn, but we're also, you know, again, not actually getting to the goal. So it's not just that we think, oh, it's hard and we're in that delusion, but we're also just not learning, which is the biggest problem. Or one of the biggest problems is it's not just that we stay stuck here and thinking, oh, we have a lot of illusions, but as long as we're here, we're not going up here. So we're actually just not, we're not getting to the depth. And that's what we're here to do. So again, that serpent energy, that intensity, like you see in the gaze of this serpent, he ain't fooling around. He's like, do something or I'm gonna bite you. So we might be feeling bitten, like something's trying to bite you right now and shock you into reality, into deeper awareness. And that's also through the heart. It's the sign of Cancer, which is the sign of selfless love and nurturing. It's also where Jupiter, the planet of guru and teachings and higher wisdom, is exalted. Because we're supposed to take the purest teachings and the best teachings. And if you have great gurus and teachers in your life, whether online or in person or whatever, even with all the teachers that you look at whose videos you watch or whatever, you see ones that have really separated themselves where you're like, no, that's the real thing. That's the real teachings, and I know it. When that goes deep into your heart and you make a commitment to it, then your life changes. Our teachings and our gurus, they have to go into the heart, just like the other things that go into your heart. Think of the things that you want right now that are deep in your heart. I want this thing. I'm so emotional about this. I want this. I want this other thing. How much of it is really pure wisdom? Imagine loving and being devoted to pure wisdom like that. Being devoted to a guru and the truth like that. That's what transforms your life, ultimately. So Jupiter has joined Rahu right now. It's further separating, but he's about to go retrograde as well. But Jupiter is also in a very favorable aspect with Mercury and Mars in Leo. It's a very good time to be doing and making a commitment and starting a new course on these teachings. And again, taking a chance. And by the way, I'll just tell you, in my certification course, I even guarantee the course. You can try it. If it really doesn't work for you, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. It's always been like that. I don't want anyone getting it who, if you really try it and you think, oh, this just doesn't work. Again, it never happens. But I make the offer. And by the way, there's also very creative ways to pay. There's a program through PayPal where you can pay the course off 6 months, no interest. There's all kinds of ways that people, once they're devoted to the teachings, they make way for it because they get bitten by it and they have to know. And not just the astrology, but their true cosmic nature. Because you're here to learn this. You're supposed to know your true nature. And right now we're down here and all this karma, we don't even realize that all the karma isn't who we really are. We don't even realize that's just us operating through our ego, let alone that we're so disconnected from the purity of our true nature, of those powers that brought us down into this incarnated realm. Not to mention that the transcendent beyond that, what we're really returning to is way up here. And it looks far, and it's far from down here if we're just tangled up in darkness and ignorance. But once we start learning, rapid progress happens. Because the greatest thing about learning this spiritual wisdom is that it's your nature. That's why I changed the name of the course to Live Your True Nature, because it's actually just reawakening your true nature. This is always what happens when people start studying, is it's like I'm teaching things that you already know, but you've forgotten. Like, oh yeah, that, and not just that you remember, like, oh yeah, but it's like, oh, and this is how it works. Precise, specific, actual method, not just methods to prognosticate, but actual structures. Like, oh yeah, elements, gunas, motivations, this, that. This is how everything works. So then your life, and by extension astrology, becomes very sensible and laid out, and you can see, okay, this is what I have to do. Now you have to do it, then you have to actually do the practices, but at least you know where you're going and how you got there. Again, that's one of the biggest problems now as well, is people might understand a lot of the things I'm saying here about Venus and the moon and being wrapped up in desire, but they don't really understand it well enough to get back to the source. Like I just said, the devotion of the moon, of the sign of Cancer, is very different than the desire of Venus. Again, and a lot of these energies look very similar. By the way, again, I'm just going to say very clearly, often and very, very rarely do I hear astrologers describe the difference between Venus and the moon very well. It's like, oh, they're all just about love and happiness and emotion, and no. One interrupts the other. In fact, they're not opposite, they're like inimical toward each other. And they create enormous illusions about the other. We get very lost in the illusion between the moon and Venus. They're both about wanting to experience something that we call feeling good, but completely different reasons, completely different ways. And if you don't understand this, you just will not understand this part of your life or your mind. You simply will not understand it. And hearing me say it here once isn't understanding it. So these are the kinds of things that a deep immersion and study of these sacred teachings bring into your life. And at times when we have these new moons, these are inflection points where new cycles begin. And in this case, you're being bitten by something. You're being bitten by the serpent. And your toxic habits and toxic entanglements and the ignorance around them are being revealed. And you have a response. You need to have a response to it. The same old karmic cycle, or some incremental version. Oh yeah, okay, I saw that video. Boy, that really helped. Okay, right back to the same thing. Because again, just hearing the information and then believing it's true and then not really changing much of anything doesn't change much of anything. You've heard similar things before. So this is a big cycle, and it's the second month in the sign of Cancer, this Adhika Masa for 2023. So this is kind of like the culmination. And by the way, it's a 30-day cycle after this. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. Leave some comments. Let me know how this felt to you. And again, if it speaks to you to actually learn how these things work, to actually live your true nature as hundreds of students and graduates have before, then you could also join. The first weekend will be August 19th and 20th, where I'm reteaching the first module. And then there's the opening ceremony on the 22nd officially. But this is a very auspicious time as well for these new beginnings, with both the Aslesha new moon, Nag Panchami, Kalki Jayanti, and very auspicious and hopeful times. And I hope you're feeling auspicious and hopeful in your life, because I sure am. And that's the point of living our true nature, because our true nature is bliss and joy, not stress, fear, worry, ignorance. And so with that, I hope you have a great day. Go to yourtruenaturevideos.com to get the Live Your True Nature 4-part video series. The first is called Your True Self, Your Cosmic Self, where we talk about the Atman, the Jiva Atman that comes down into the 9 planets of Lord Vishnu, how we incarnate. Then we look at our egoistic struggles in video 3, where we try to return back to the path home, the joyful and wise path home, in video 4. So again, yourtruenaturevideos.com. It's time to know yourself, not just believe in yourself.